You're watching Global Reports here on Liberty Television at our Kaduna studios. Welcome once again. As usual, we're going to give you trending reports from around the world on global television. Once again in our studio we have Ferdinand Okonkwo. Welcome again, Ferdinand, to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. First of all, we'll kick off. Last week we talked about Donald Trump's recognition, or the U.S. president's recognition of the Jerusalem. I'm sorry, and they want to move the U.S. embassy. U.S. government wants to move their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, therefore recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. This has caused a big furore in the Middle East, and there have been a lot of riots and trouble and condemnation by various world leaders. Watch this report from Al Jazeera television.
An animated discussion between the US ambassador and the Palestinian representative, just one of the urgent conversations taking place around the room even before the session began. The packed chamber testament to the depth of international concern, and some argue the credibility of the Security Council itself is under attack.
If the Council does not act accordingly to what its mandate is, which is preserving peace and security, then the Council might become another occupied territory.
Speaking by video link from Jerusalem, the UN Special Coordinator condemned the unilateral US action.
If the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not resolved in line with relevant UN resolutions and in a manner that meets the legitimate national aspirations of both peoples, it risks being engulfed into the vortex of religious radicalism that has taken over the Middle East.
Italy's position on Jerusalem remains unchanged.
Speaker after speaker reaffirmed the UN's position on the status of Jerusalem.
And we believe that the future status, as I said, of Jerusalem can only be resolved through negotiations.
Criticism too from the staunchest of US allies, and the British ambassador also called on President Trump to make good his professed commitment to a peace process.
We welcome his commitment to a two-state solution.
The US representative decided the best form of defense is attack.
Over many years, the United Nations has outrageously been of the world's foremost centers of hostility towards Israel. The UN has done much more damage to the prospects for Middle East peace than to advance them.
Of the 19 nations represented in the chamber on this day, the US position was shared only by Israel.
The United States had the courage and true understanding of justice to officially state what has always been known.
The U.S. decision to reward Israelis' impunity undermines and essentially disqualifies its leadership role to seek peace in the region.
While the Jordanian ambassador exchanges high fives with the Palestinian representative, a key question remains hanging in the chamber. How can the US continue to be regarded as an honest broker in attempting to resuscitate a long dormant negotiation process? Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, United Nations.
So the story of the U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is continuing to send a lot of problems around the world, igniting fires that we don't really need at the moment in the world. Ferdinand, what do you have to say about this?
Thank you, my brother. We were here the other time, and we, like predicted, what we have on ground today. I don't know the need for this announcement now. We have the Middle East on fire. The issue of North Korea is unsettled. The world at large is having a lot of crises on hand. Why now? Why are we? Well, it's still part of the issue we will be expecting under President Trump. Of course, we know that, like I usually say, this is a political tsunami. We are expecting more from him. But I don't know how far he will go with this announcement. I don't know what to do. America being alone, so to say,
Very much so,
on this
yes.
issue.
Yeah.
EU have taken a definite stand. United Nations has taken a definite stand. America is like standing alone on this matter. Well, only time will tell.
And it's not just this issue. I noticed today on television they were showing it's 2 years since the United Nations ratified the organization that is global. What do you call it now? They had this group of people, group of nations who signed the accord, the Global Warming Accord, to reduce
Carbon
pollution and carbon emissions. They just had held a meeting in was it France? It's 2 years since everybody signed, and America, USA, the President Donald Trump refused to sign it. So America's USA is no longer leading the way. Before, America was the lead in any international event, any international push, any international thing. Now they're not leading the way.
Of course, it will continue as long as this tsunami will continue. We should expect it. Perhaps this might be the announcement of the end of American dominion in the world affairs, because nobody is like isolating America now. America is busy isolating itself from the international arena.
Yeah, going back to the Palestinian-Israeli problem, the Middle East problem, shall we say? Before, and people like Bill Clinton, and to an extent George Bush, and certainly under Obama, there was moves to try and find a solution to the Middle East problem, however tractable or intractable it is. But again, now it looks under President Trump, they're even abandoning that role as a leader in these affairs. It's quite sad.
You had the somersault, diplomatic somersault. You call yourself a peace mediator, where you have already taken side. You are very clear that I am for, an issue is on the table, and the people are trying to find amicable solution. You just walk in as the mediator and tell one of the parties that this is my stand. You don't have say in this matter. But anyway, I am a peacemaker.
But it doesn't make sense.
How sensible.
How can you be a peacemaker when you come down on one side?
On one side?
Yeah. This was clear in that the visit to
and
Israel.
it will get to a point where America will totally erode their importance in the Middle East affair. I said it a long time ago. If we must have peace in the Middle East, it will never come from America.
And frankly, I don't think Donald Trump even understands the implications and historical backgrounds of these affairs. Look at when he went to Israel. He thought when he visited the Middle East, and he came with one country, then he came to Israel. He was talking, well, I've been to the Middle East. Someone had to remind him, sir, you are in the Middle East. You haven't left the Middle East. Israel is in the Middle East. It's part of the Middle East, and one of the main protagonists of the problem.
For the next 2 years, I pray America will be reasonably enough to do away with this political tsunami. If America should continue with Trump in the next 6-7 years, it's obvious that America will be reckoned at the back of the history.
Well, certainly the Democratic Party seem to be, and other people seem to be trying to find ways to unseat him.
But we should equally look at
hackings.
Is he actually reflecting the mentality of an average American?
What is an average American?
An average American. Is he actually reflecting
what is an average Nigerian? Is a mixture of Igbo,
Is
Yoruba,
Trump actually
Hausa?
reflecting the mentality of the power brokers in America. That's the very thorny issue. If he is actually reflecting the interest of the power brokers in America.
Well, who are the power brokers in America?
The power brokers are the kingmakers. The kingmakers are the people who foisted Trump on the world today.
The capitalists.
You know exactly where he was coming from.
Yeah.
You know exactly how he came in. Nobody gave him a chance, but at last he carried the day.
It's interesting at the moment.
With all his mess during the campaign, nobody thought. Trump showed exactly where he was going, yet America voted him in. So what does he make?
No, the American voting system voted him in. He actually was not the overall winner of the election. He was not the winner.
But the power brokers gave him the voting. That is the danger. If he's representing exactly their interest, then I tell you today, mark it. It will not be too long. America will lose grip of the world. After all, nation rise and fall.
Nation fall,
History has it that nation rise and fall.
Of many empires.
Probably this is the beginning of the descending of America.
The end. And it was interesting, they're trying to unseat him by various methods, including ladies accusing him of sexual improprieties, which he's not, he feels he doesn't have to answer that one. But it's interesting, the Time magazine, which always has a person of the year about this time of the year, he was asking them why are they going to make him man of the year, and they wouldn't answer him. What happened, what they've made is the person or persons of the year have been a group of women who are campaigning against sexual harassment by not just Donald Trump, but by a lot of American politicians. So that's a supreme irony. Anyway, we must move on. This week, I think it was Saturday, we had the PDP convention in which they elected a new chairman, am I right?
A new executive.
New executive, yeah. And that also has created a lot of problems, it appears. Let's just watch this short report from Channels Television.
Like swimming pool. Everybody, either give me a whisk like Ready Bull.
It's a long-awaited day for members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. The 2017 elective convention of the party in Abuja, where principal officers of the PDP are expected to be elected. 92 aspirants jostle for 23 positions, but none of the positions appears to be as intensely contested as that of the chairmanship. Initially, 9 chairmanship aspirants struggle for the #1 seat of the party. But as time ticks, tension rises. Some aspirants from the southwest withdrew, citing various reasons, including alleged marginalization and the need to have a consensus candidate from the region.
There's some things I cannot take.
Addressing delegates before the commencement of voting, both the chairman of the PDP Caretaker Committee and Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Jonathan, call on members to be united and focused in order to win elections in 2019.
We emphasize on our unity. Yes, in the political process, people may feel aggrieved for one reason or the other. But as a PDP family, immediately we finish with the elections, we come together to push not just the party forward, but to push the country forward. PDP believe that in any round of elections, there will be no winner.
Okay, Ferdinand, what do you see about what's going on at the moment?
Well, on the surface, we were told it's going to be, a free and fair election. But just like PDP and its own identity, there must be one way or the other control over the election. Internal democracy, I'm not sure they understand the definition. You can see now that some group of, power brokers, like we used to say, in the name of governors, have gathered and then hijacked the party once more. It's all about hijacking from the hijackers. So you could see the imprint of some of the vocal and powerful governors in the PDP having their way, as usual. But I know it's a political calculation. There was a calculation underground to kind of shut out the Southwest out of PDP, probably because they know that the APC, the ruling party, might not be in a position to lose Southwest now. So I think it's a calculation sort of. But it all depends on how they're able to manage the fallout of the election. Because there is a serious, not just there is a seeming sign of manipulation. It was actually manipulated, but technically manipulated. So those who lost, we are going to see how they will be pacified and how PDP on its own will be able to manage the aftermath of this convention. You know, one thing I don't like actually is this mentality of every time blaming the opposition or blaming the other party of trying to score. You know, it has a way of winning sympathy within, but it has no sympathy without.
I was reading an editorial by Reuben Abati in, I think it was this day, today, I think, or yesterday. He made a comment that we do not yet have, after 18 years after our return to democracy, a political party that represents the closest ideals of democracy. There are 50 political parties or so, I think there's a lot more, on the list of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. But they're all special purpose vehicles designed to put ambitious men and women who go by the title of professional politicians into the corridors of power, and more precisely, in close proximity to Nigeria's resources.
That is the very thing we have said once, and again, somebody is repeating it. You could look at the whole thing. By 2018, you should be expecting some camping and decamping. You understand? It's not based on political ideals. It's not based on ideology. It's not based on anything called party ideology. Far from it. It's just opportunism. Look out for a place you have a space you can feel, then you move in. Claim whatever you like, you move in and fill the space.
As I've said, we don't have political parties in Nigeria.
We don't have political parties.
Like you have, say,
we only
USA
have opportunistic
UK,
parties,
which go back several hundred years in some cases.
We don't have it in this country. And there is no, we are not seeing situation on ground that is taking us there. You understand? So I personally assume that having been in the opposition position right now, that PDP will try to use some of these free monies they have around themselves to build a party. But it seems that free monies they have amassed, instead of building parties, they are building walls against the people. They just have that mentality, old mentality of doing it in the old way. And I'm not sure that people like Fayose or Wike, the governor of Ekiti and River State, with people like them in the party, you still have party democracy. It will not work.
I think it's pertinent to just, I'm sorry, I keep re-quoting Reuben Abati because I quite liked his article, although he was part of the PDP before anyway. On Saturday, December 9th, they failed to gain the confidence of the Nigerian people. They ended up showing that they have learned no lessons at all and that they are perhaps incapable of learning. December 9th was the United Nations International Day Against Corruption, the same day. The label of corruption has been the worst stigma that the PDP has had to deal with in its short but eventful history. Rather than use the occasion of its convention to mark itself positively, the party delivered in broad daylight a convention that was a loud promotion of corruption, a brazen mockery of the Buhari administration's heavily conflicted campaign against corruption.
That is the same thing we are talking about. Albert is saying this something. You see, the man, okay, without being immodest, let's face the fact, the chairman have been an acting chairman of the PDP prior to after the election. And he has a case with the EFCC. He was accused of receiving over 30 exotic cars from political allies of the past administration, which was not accounted for. You see, we are still rotating. They have this mentality of Nigerians are just easy to, manipulate. We are malleable, very easily malleable. You see, we can easily forget yesterday. And I keep saying it. Even if PDP will bring an NJ tomorrow as their presidential candidate, the background and the platform of that NJ for this election is already faulted. You have a gang up of people who have messed up, who are the people responsible for the mess we are today. And we thought they would have a shift from this. Just have a shift. They believe we are just, we are animals that, we don't know our left from our right. Anywhere they push us, we should go that way. And they keep telling us, the ruling party wants to suppress us. Nobody is suppressing you. Rather, you are telling us that we amount to nothing. Average Nigerian amounts to nothing. We don't have our brain. We can't recall. We can't remember. This same set of people who have gathered today, controlling the party affairs, are the same people that we have looked to their faces and told them, look, no more space for you in the political arena, at least for now. And they are here and they are pointing accusing fingers on the government of the day. Government fighting against them. If you hate the heat, we don't need to see you in the kitchen. They don't need to come to the kitchen. Check all their chairmanship candidates. All of them has cases to answer with the EFCC. They have cases to answer. In a developed world, you don't come close. You clear yourself before you come in for elective position once more. But here, the moment you touch them, government is using the power of incumbency to prosecute all of us. That is the same thing they will cry out for. And we are watching them. The right thing today is that we have a government that will give us, that will make the vote to count. It happened in Anambra State. We saw it all. It happened in Anambra State. The vote counted.
So nothing changed.
Whatever they think they can do, one thing I know is that they will not go to South Africa and print voters
again.
They will not go and print the card we will not use during the election. That will be scattered on the street of South Africa immediately after the election. There will be no writing of result in one corner of the room.
So it's not a question.
So I know that what PDP started crying for today, they will keep crying about it until after 2019.
It's not a question.
I will keep hearing them cry.
It's not a question of old wine in new bottles. It's a question
is not possible.
Old wine in old bottles.
It is not possible. And we are ready to wait for their cry of power of incumbency.
We, unfortunately, Ferdinand, our time is up, and you have been watching Global Reports on Liberty Television, and thank you once again for being in the studio and joining us, and goodbye and see you next week.